Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look at race number 12 at Gulfstream Park on Pegasus World Cup Saturday. This is the World Cup Turf. It's a grade one. It's worth $1,000,000, and it's at 1.125 miles. We take a look at this field. It's a big full field. The three integration is unbeaten, getting the step up in class as a newly turned 4-year-old. The one he's going to have to down is the classy Warm Heart, who is second in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, a multiple Group 1 winner for Aidan O'Brien, and a horse with some tactical speed, at least going longer distances. The
Yeah.
key question I have for you is, do you think Warm Heart is more effective going slightly longer?
I mean, it certainly seems that way when you ship her over here to run against horses like this. And this is a good field, Dan, but it's not like she's facing a bunch of superstars over here. When you run her against a field like this one, the distance probably matters a little bit less, but it's at least, worth pointing out for a horse who's probably going to be the favorite. She's better going longer.
We'll throw up the Timeform US pace projector for the Pegasus World Cup Turf and main event. Took him all the way last time out. He's likely to try to get to the front. I wouldn't be surprised if a Tone, last year's winner, is aggressively ridden from the front. He won this race from way off the pace last year, but is a very tactical sort. Jerry the Nipper gets blinkers. Maybe they get aggressive with him. I'd like to see Jose Ortiz try to take this race early with Jerry the Nipper.
I'd like to see that too. I mean, I think it would be their best chance to win here, Dan. For what this horse is plenty fast too. The blinkers to me make no difference at all. If they wanted to lead with this horse in any of his last 3 races, he would have had it. They just didn't want it. I wonder if they decide to change it up here and put him on the front.
Tone won this race last year, but you could argue that last year's edition isn't as strong as the 2024 renewal. Let's take a look at his most recent start. He's odds on. Michael Maker dropped him into this allowance race to try to get him a little bit of a confidence boost. It was a race where the pace sort of held up, but then again, Mike, he's odds on. Isn't he supposed to at least run a little bit better? He's grinding it out for third.
Yeah, make an impression of some kind. Anyway, you're right. I mean, the pace was dominated up front. That's to me, that's not enough of an excuse for this horse. He's, all life and death to outfinish Running with Scissors for fourth. Running with Scissors is a 50 claimer. I don't know. This horse has races that would obviously make him really tough. He just feels like he's way off form.
Todd Pletcher's going to put blinkers on the number 2, Jerry the Nipper. Jose Ortiz again takes the mount. This is a horse that kind of runs in spots. I think he's the quintessential sort that will appreciate blinkers if it gets him to focus. His last race, he was third in the Fort Lauderdale. He got wired by main event. He hasn't had the greatest trips in his last couple of races. If he's focused, he has some races on his page that make him competitive, and he has good tactical speed.
All those things are true. I mean, he's just a horse who it feels like if they finally do the right thing with him and get him some kind of competent trip in here, he can be really tough in this race. That I'm not his biggest fan, and I don't love that the blinkers are going on. I don't see how that makes a difference. This horse got a terrible ride 2 starts back in the Artie Schiller. Otherwise, he might have won that race. Last time, they again rated him from the start, conceded to main event on a slow pace. He gets bumped and loses position around the final turn, and then he's just making up tons of ground late. He's in really good form right now. I don't trust him, but if he's any kind of price in here, I'm using it.
The unbeaten integration could be any kind. 3 for 3 in his career for Shug McGahee. Here's his victory over I'm Very Busy, who's back for more in the Hill Prince. Integration settled behind a very nice pace. He got to the outside, got the jump on I'm Very Busy, who was down inside. But despite drifting out considerably in the stretch, this horse is flying home. And I'm Very Busy is running very well for second, but no match for the winner.
I'm Very Busy ran well in here, and this horse just powers away from him at the end. I don't know if these fractions are right, especially that last 1/8 of a mile in this race when you look at the PPs, but it looks right. I mean, this horse was flying through the stretch in there. He looked just like that in his first 2 starts too, Dan. Big finishes in those races. He showed good tactical speed last time too. This is the toughest race he's ever been in. I think the toughest race he's ever been in by far. There's no telling how good this horse is.
Expertly handled thus far by Shug McGahee, working very well at pacing for this race. Integration could be a future star. I'm Very Busy. We saw finish second in the Hill Prince. Integration sort of got the clear run on the outside. I'm Very Busy was just sort of held up briefly at the quarter pole, but then got right outside and behind Integration and then just couldn't make an impact. I think there's something here with this horse. There's talent. He just has to improve 5 lengths on Integration, and who knows how much on a horse like Warm Heart.
Yeah, exactly. All those things are really working against him. And I'm with you. I thought he ran fine last time. Maybe not as good a trip as Integration got, but he got a good trip in that race, and he just could not kick with Integration. To me, it just makes him hard to like in this race. I guess the flip side of that is he's going to be a great price in here, and he does have talent.
Web Slinger, the number 5, is a big closer that usually shows up. He just hasn't been able to seal the deal in his last few races. Here's the Hollywood Derby back in early December at Del Mar. It was a race that was dominated by closers. It had a fast pace. Web Slinger's going to come out with a look here. He's going to come charging at Program Trading, who's a very good turf horse in his own right. He just won't get there, but he does finish ahead of 2 next out winners, and he might get some pace in this race.
Yeah, he might. I mean, we'll see what they decide to do with him here. It's kind of confounding though, Dan. Like when you see all these close finishes where he just doesn't quite get there at the end, but he runs well in all those races. And then you just see how they've decided to ride him in most of these races. Like he doesn't, to me, especially earlier last year, he wasn't a horse that had to be coming from last every week. They would put him in sort of mid-pack in a comfortable spot and then let him kick home. They've done the last 3 starts, just taking him all the way back off the pace and trying to make him pass everyone, and it hasn't worked out. He can win this race if he gets the right trip. I'm reluctant to bet him in here, Dan, because I don't think he's going to be a great price.
Since shipping to North America, the number 6 King Max has run 3 times on turf. He won his first 2 starts, and I like how the connections handled him, just running him right through his conditions. They ran him in the Seagroom Cup on synthetic at Woodbine. It didn't work out. Last time out in the Fort Lauderdale, he was wired by Main Event, but he was running on at the end, and maybe if he changes leads, he gets there.
He had really no chance in that race. Off the layoff, there's no real pace in front of them, and they just sort of sit back. They didn't even go for a run around the second turn that day. They just sat and waited, and then they finally turned him loose in the stretch, and I like the kick that he put in there. He's been a little wonky with his lead changes in all of his races, and since he's got over here, and he was super green in some tough races over in Europe, I feel like he's just finally putting it all together, Dan. His first 2 wins over here, I know they were allowance races against weaker horses. To me, he looked really good winning.
Chad Brown and Flavien Prat teamed up to win the Grade 1 UN at Monmouth in 2022 with Adamo. This horse is seeking his first victory since that afternoon. They ran him in the Breeders' Cup Turf last time. Very aggressive with him, which really isn't his style of running. They put him on a hard chase behind a loose leader, and he tired very badly. Here's a thought which maybe could explain why you think Adamo is going to run better. I think he's going to actually like turning back to this distance. When he first got over here, they ran him a 1.125 and he ran just fine. He ran well going longer. I like him at a 1.125.
I'm with you on that. I think that's the case that you want to make for this horse. If you want to take a shot with him in here at what is supposed to be a pretty good price, I think that I know he's got a bunch of grade 1s on his card, but I think he gets overlooked in here, and I don't mind them cutting him back in distance.
Conversely, the number 8 Masterpiece might be slightly better at slightly longer distances. Here's his win in the Red Smith last time out at Aqueduct, going 1 3/8. First start off of a 3-month layoff, and he swung wide into the stretch behind a solid pace. And once he changes leads in mid-stretch, he goes on with it. He's a horse that likes to stay. He's going to need a little bit of pace cutting back. He's run well at this distance in the past. I just wonder if maybe at this point in his career, he wants a little longer.
Yeah, he got a good ride winning this Red Smith here, and he got the job done. I'm going to take the opposite position that you just took, Dan. I actually like this horse going shorter races. You gotta pick apart his form a little bit to get to those races, but he's actually run really well when they've gone shorter with him. They ran him in this race last year, and he did not get a good trip in that race, but was actually passing horses in traffic late. His other races at 9 furlongs, particularly the Eddie Reed a couple of years ago, he ran huge that day.
Warm Heart is up next, and she's the horse to beat. A multiple Group 1 winner last year in Europe. They ran her in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. Ryan Moore gave her a perfect trip, tracking in the pocket. She's going to come out with a run to make the lead in the stretch after saving ground all the way, and it takes a superstar and Inspiral to run her down. They ran her in the Hong Kong Vase last time out. On the video, it just looked like that pace was very slow. Moore had this horse up close. She made the lead turning into the stretch. She looked like she was just going to win, and she just didn't have that pop, that final 100 yards. And it makes me wonder if maybe after a long season, this might be one too many. It could be her last start of her career.
That's true. That's a good point. And it's also, I think, worth pointing out. We talked about, the distance for her and maybe that she's just better going longer. And that's kind of how it looks on the tape. She's got that sort of one-paced running style where the longer distances really suit her because she gets into position and then she stays, and that might not really work that well for her in here. She's the class of the race, though. I mean, there's no denying that. She's a really good horse. I just wonder if this is not a pretty good spot to take a shot against her.
Cheryl Spite is the number 10 going out for Louis Saez and the legendary Canadian horseman Roger Atfield. This horse was a tough trip, second in the Breeders' Cup Mile in 2022. Had to angle out a couple of times. A good horse beat him, but he ran. They ran him in the mile again this year. And again, he's sort of up close in mid-pack, and he just didn't fire. He does have the tactical speed to get good trips. He has some races on his page that make him competitive with these sort of horses. The big question's a mile and an eighth. He's really never been tested at this distance other than that one race in Dubai where I thought he ran a lot better than it looks on paper.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we've been talking a lot about distances for all these horses, that they better going longer, they better going shorter. I kind of feel like he's better going shorter, but they really have been reluctant to go beyond a mile and a 16th with this horse. And when they did go a mile and a 16th with him, he ran great in those races. I don't know, maybe it doesn't make a difference, but listen, this is one of those races. You pick one or you pick too many. You can't like them all in this race, Dan. I'm against this horse.
Main event is up next. He's on very good form. He's won his last two gate to wire fashion for George Weaver. He beat three of these last time. You're going to see King Max get up for second despite failing to change leads. You're going to see Jerry the Nipper, who's down towards the inside looking for a seam. Main event had the best of it in this race. He got to the front and Javier backed down the fractions. It was an expert ride.
Yeah, he ran great in here, but he also had all the best of it here. They just conceded the lead to this horse, and then he went unchallenged all the way up the backstretch. He's dead game here to hang on. King Max just can't quite get him. That was Jerry the Nipper in between horses there, rallying up to get third. Now, he ran great in there, too. This horse is fine. I would rather have other horses out of that Fort Lauderdale.
Catnip drew a tough post position for this year's edition of the Pegasus World Cup Turf. We haven't seen him since the Arlington Million. It was a race that had a pretty quick pace, and he just didn't have any pop. I don't mind Michael Stidham coming off the layoff, and I think this is a pretty confident placing for this guy. There's some ability here. It's a tough post. He's going to need a lot of things to go his way.
I agree. I like the way he was headed last year, though, before the Arlington Million, which I'm happy to give him a pass for. It's interesting that they start him back in here. It's unfortunate for them that they drew the far outside post. I would not be surprised, though, if this horse comes back running off the layoff and makes his presence felt in this race. He's pretty good.
Of the two also eligibles, Grand Sonata and Anglophile, I guess I prefer Grand Sonata, but I will be lining up to bet either one of them. Just a tough post and a tough spot for both.
Tough post. Yeah, I'm a big Grand Sonata fan. I think he's really underrated. I think he's another horse who ran way better than it looks in the Fort Lauderdale last time with no chance.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Pegasus World Cup Turf. We're both going to look for prices in here. I think we both think that Integration's the horse to beat and won't be surprised if he dusts this field and gets a lot of hype afterwards. But King Max is a very consistent horse, and I think he's going to be running late at a good price.
I do too. That's why I took him. I just think he's going to be a good price in here. I know the first two wins over here, maybe they don't look that great on paper. They're not fast, but I liked the way that he looked winning. I just feel like he's finally putting everything together, and he ran really well last time with no chance to win.
I'm going to believe the Trill Spike can get the mile and an eighth. He was in tough against Master of the Season, his last two, off the layoff the time before that. His tactical speed, I think, is key in here because I think he could sit a good trip in the second flight and get a jump on the true closers turning for home. He's a grade one winner. He has back races. 6-3-2-8 for Mike, 10-3-2-8 for me. Grade one, Pegasus World Cup Turf, Super Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Best of luck.